My name is Jim Leous, and I'm with ITS Emerging Technologies. And what I was asked to do was to moderate a panel, which, and I call these folks over here to my left the really faculty exemplars at getting student involvement, engaging their students using technology. And as a bit of a, none of these people look like Chris Long here, as you can probably see. So Chris, unfortunately, came down with the flu after nursing his wife through the flu for the last week or so. He's my neighbor. And I did want to mention that if you go to one person's blog site to see how blogging should be done at Penn State, it's this guy right here. I mean, I joke around and I call him Blog Boy. But he's the coordinator, the director of the graduate program in the philosophy department. And he blogs, that's their official site that he and the grad students use to let them know about upcoming changes in the program, faculty hires. And it looks like they're hiring a lot of people, so I don't know where they got the money. But, you know, so Chris is a wonderful guy. He's got his e-portfolio is a blog. So he started blogging his Vita, and he was one of the first people that I know of that did that used our blogging service. And probably the second person was right here, and I made her leave her rock hammer at home because, you know, we didn't want that kind of stuff, people with dangerous weapons coming in. Laura is an associate professor, Laura Gerton is an associate professor of earth sciences, and she's the coordinator of the honors program at Penn State Brandywine. And she's done some, I think we just heard from Penn State Brandywine over there. No, we've heard from the honors program. So Laura has incorporated podcasting and the digital commons into her class. And just to give you some idea of how adaptive she is the Digital Commons site wasn't up till about August of 2007, and she incorporated it in her class for last fall. And really, she did some extraordinary things. And why don't you just tell us sort of how you use this service, the studio, to enhance your classes? Talk about some of the assignments that you've had them do.
Sure, thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. I am Laura Gerton of the Brandywine campus, and our digital commons arrived on our campus the week before classes started in the fall. But I am a technology junkie, but I'm very careful with new technology tools that are out there because I want to make sure if I'm going to bring them into the classroom that they do benefit student learning. Now, the overarching issue I face with my classes is that I teach introductory level geoscience and earth science classes. So, and they satisfy general education requirements for Penn State's curriculum. So as you can imagine, there's not one student in my class that wants to be in my class because everyone has to take 9 credits of science before they graduate, and no one wants to be a geologist. So one of my overarching goals is to show students how they can learn the content in a fun and innovative way, but also another overarching goal is to get the students to use technology and to showcase what they've learned. It's really important for me, for my students to realize that even though they're a student, they can still be a teacher and share their knowledge and make a difference for others. So one of the projects we did, we connected with a state park that's very close to our campus, Ridley Creek State Park. And they have a multi-use trail that have trees with numbers on them. And what the park wants people to do is to go around the park and try to identify what the tree is. But then the answer key is in the park office. And unless you're a plant or tree expert, a lot of people don't get that correct. So what my students did is we went to the park, we took photos of the trees, we took GPS coordinates of the trees, and we created an enhanced podcast that can be downloaded onto an iPod. So when people are walking around the park and they come to tree number 1, they can hit play and they can see some photos and hear about that tree and how it fits into the context of Pennsylvania biodiversity. And we also took that same data and put it into Google Earth as well, so that this enhances the outreach mission of the park. So if there's someone that can't visit the park, they can still learn about what's there by going online in the internet.
Yeah, and I was taking a look at some of the blogs that your students had from that class, and some of them take a very personal interest in their tree. So I saw like a Tree 17 blog, which was really cool. Unfortunately, I think Tree 17 is no longer from what I saw. one of the other things, we had this interesting conversation. You had your students go to the solar decathlon, and that had sort of a different kind of Penn State experience. And why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it certainly was. The course I taught in the fall was called Environment Earth, and we connected it with STS 200, Critical Issues in Science, Technology, and Society. So it was very broad-ranging. And with Penn State participating in the solar decathlon for the first time, I wanted to take my students there, not just to see these new emerging technologies and how solar energy can be harnessed, but also to learn more about what's going on at Penn State. Being at a campus, our students are very separated from what's going on up here. I mean, there's just not the connections, the networks, and again, most of my students do come up here, though, after the first 2 years. So I wanted to try to get them to see what is possible and what the potential is for when they come to University Park. And so the purpose of going to Solar Decathlon was to, in essence, archive and document Penn State's participation. And each student was assigned 2 houses that they had to go through and document. We had iPods with microphones, and the students went around, interviewed the other students from other universities that were building the houses to get some information about the technology. They took photos, GPS coordinates. Again, we put this in Google Earth. But what I think was the most impact, of course, was not the science, but the sense that Penn State, the day we were there, was number 3 out of 20 universities from across the world. And that sense of pride that my Penn State students felt for being Penn State. They were just cheering and said, "Did you see the leaderboard?" Every student made sure I saw that Penn State was number 3. MIT is number 20. They were at the bottom of the list. And
we are.
That's right. And so the students were so happy about that. And every day after we came back from Washington, D.C., every day in class, the students would informally among themselves start a discussion and a debate. Did you see where Penn State's ranked today? Did you see who won this competition? And so they were still very engaged and felt very connected with the university as a whole. And to have a sense of pride in their Penn State identity, that's nothing that I expected and nothing that I thought would have happened, but certainly it was probably the most rewarding part for me to see this Penn State identity come through in that particular project.
Great. Now, the capstone of the course was you asked them to come up with an entry for this SCA Mazda Conservation in Action contest here. And this is actually your page, and it has a list of all the entries on the page. But before I ask you to talk about this, it's just an extraordinary video of one of the entries in the contest. And let's hope everything goes okay here. Cross our fingers. Okay, it's going all right.
You know, it's time to take a look at the world we're living in. People keep taking, but sure not giving any. Pollution, abuse, energy misuse, waste and poverty, there's no stopping it. What about diversity harming, unorganic farming, hasty global warming, and we're not even alarming? We gotta fix this.
Laptop, what can I say?
It's only proper to address this, 'cause it's making me restless from being slowly infested, like cancer from asbestos. Who went and tried to mess this environment so deserving that we need to be conserving, but the people want subserving. There's no thought about reserving this environment that we're living in, making wrong decisions.
Okay, and I'm going to stop it right there. It's about 5.5 minutes long, and you're going to present this later in its entirety. This is a little bit of a teaser. At 1:15 in room 205, along with some of your students, you'll be talking about utilization of the digital commons. So why don't you sort of tell us, this is Lindley Jones, and why don't you tell us a little bit about her?
This is very embarrassing for me to say as a faculty member. I didn't teach her how to do any of this. What this final assignment was, it's SCA Student Conservation Action, and they had a multimedia contest where they wanted students to take some sort of issue related to the environment, use multimedia technology in whatever way they wanted to, and submit an entry to them. And Lindley, she's a sophomore business major, and doesn't say 2 words in class. She has never written a song before. She has never recorded video before. But we had this digital commons, which she had spent plenty of time in with the Ridley Creek Project and Solar Decathlon Project, and she saw all these wonderful applications on the computers, and she started playing with it. She shot all this video herself. She did have her sister drive the car, though, when the video was going through Philadelphia.
Which is good.
The images she found online as royalty-free, copyright-free. She assured me, she made sure of that as well. But this, I mean, it just completely blew me away. And there were other student projects also that were similar, where they wrote their own music and recorded their own video. The students just embraced this technology and took it to a completely different level that I never thought they would. So just showing them, introducing the technology just a little bit and seeing how far the students could take it, it absolutely amazed me. So I can't wait to get back in Digital Commons again with the students and see what else they come up with.
All right. And we'll have this page tagged, but on this page is all of the entries that her honors. It was 100 honors, Earth Science 100
yeah. These were all honor students. They were all sophomores, yeah.
Class did, and so, you know, some of it, I mean, that was clearly, in my opinion, the best, but in a lot of other people's opinions too, but some of these are just phenomenal. The way, you know, you have to consider these are not science students.
They hate science. They still hate science. They also hated Macintosh computers at the beginning of the semester. I'll say that as well. And so to embrace the Macintosh and Digital Commons technology was quite the hurdle.
That's great. That's great. Now, thanks, Laura, so much for sharing that. The next person on our panel is a player to be named later. When I found out that Chris could not make it yesterday, I asked a couple of people, I said, you know, it's not much of a panel with only 2 people and me talking here. And then people have to... And so I asked a couple people, and about maybe 8 o'clock last night, we secured the participation of Dr. Nicola Gutgold, who is a associate professor of communications arts and sciences at Penn State Lehigh Valley. And Nikki is also speaking later, and so I'm told she's going to talk about Facebook and how she engages her students with Facebook. So I didn't want to steal any of her thunder. You'll be presenting with your students later, and that's at 1:15 in room
206.
206. Yeah. Okay. And but I did want to talk to you. Well, you talked about sort of using YouTube for your classes.
Right. Well, thank you very much. I'm happy to pinch hit here and join you. It's a privilege. My name is Nikki Gutgold. I'm with the Lehigh Valley campus. I'm also honors coordinator. I want to put a plug in for that. And I was thrilled to come and talk to you a little bit because I think that when we think about technology and using it in the classroom, we can get very excited about it, and we want to be very cutting edge, and we want to be a faculty member who's using the tools. But I'm a communication professor, and I'm very strict in, especially my basic course, the CAS 100 course with my students, that they are not to get crazy with technology. In fact, if you saw my complete syllabus, it says, I don't want to see YouTube. I don't want you to use PowerPoint for your speeches. And I guess this sounds ridiculous at a teaching and learning with technology symposium like this. But in fact, for a course like CAS 100, the goal of that course is to make students very good communicators and to be very comfortable in their skin as communicators. And so to ask them to aid their human presentations with a lot of technology is really not effective for their own personal growth. I want them to be able to put their hands out and introduce themselves properly. I want to be able to hear them feel very comfortable in how they're speaking when they give speeches. And so why on earth would I even show up then and agree to be on this panel to tell you, how is technology useful? And the first thing I would like to say is that I think it's a marriage. I think it's a marriage between soft skills and high tech in order for it to be used most effectively by our students. It's great that we can turn non-science students into video stars and someone who can get very enthusiastic about that. And I think that in the process, you probably learned a lot about the environment and about science. And so that's the perfect use for it. And in speech class, we were one of the first campuses to have a digital commons. I like to say that very proudly. And I couldn't wait to use it. Eileen Grodziak is here. Eileen, wave, okay? so I could see you. There she is. She's in the back. And she runs our Digital Commons at Lehigh Valley, and it is a speech communication professor's paradise because many very large universities have speech labs, and that is a fabulous tool when you think about it, to see yourself as others do. That's what happens when you put yourself on videotape. And so in the Digital Commons, students are able to book time to go in there before they give their speeches and see themselves as others do, over and over again. And I just told students to go in, they have a week, they have to book a half an hour to see themselves as others do, and to put themselves on video, and to see themselves and think about how they look, how they sound, do they like what they see, do they like what they hear, and then they end up writing a video analysis of themselves. And some student raised her hand and she said, a half an hour? Our speeches are only 5 to 7 minutes long. Why do we have to go in for a half an hour? And I said, because you're going to keep practicing it. Our whole speech, we have to keep going over and over again. And I said, yes, you have to keep going over and over again. And so it's a fantastic tool for that. They're by themselves. They're not in front of anybody, and they can play it back as they wish. It can be posted to their Angel account. It's about as user-friendly as something can get, and as private, because maybe we won't be very thrilled with what we look like, and we're glad that the whole class isn't watching it, like they could if you posted it on YouTube, which brings me to that point. YouTube has really made my life as a speech teacher exciting. I was on spring break when the Elliot Spitzer story broke. And I'm always teaching...
What story was that?
I think the governor from New York, I'm not sure, I have to check. But anyway, I thought, wow, I've been teaching rhetorical situation all semester, and I keep saying, a rhetorical situation is anything that requires an utterance. And I'm always talking about 9/11. I thought, oh, this is such a rhetorical situation. And back in the day, I would get my videotape out and I'd put it in, and I'll admit, sometimes it would work, sometimes it wouldn't. I would rely on my son or my husband to, make sure that I was recording it properly, because I'm not as handy as I wish I was with those kinds of things. But I thought, no problem, it's going to be all on YouTube in minutes. And sure enough, it was. And so, I kind of couldn't wait to barge into the classroom and abandon whatever else we were supposed to do that day and say, this is an example of a rhetorical situation. Let's talk about Sildewall Spitzer. And oh my goodness, the class discussion, it was so lively and so exciting. People were very eager to comment. Should she speak? Should she remain silent? So while we certainly don't revel in the demise of any public figure whatsoever, it provides the classroom with a very good tool for teaching. So let me make sure I make that case very clearly. And also, for example, the current political race. YouTube is fabulous for that. Students hear a little bit of the news. They might not be the kind of news junkies we are, but students, I said, why do you think Reverend Wright is such a controversial figure? Oh, I don't know, he said stuff. Okay, let's see what he said, and YouTube is very handy for that. And it's just gaining acceptance, I think, in my field, because even as much as a year ago, I remember being on CritNet, which is our National Communication Research Theory and Network email service. It's a listserv. And I remember posting, look, you want to see Martin Luther King Jr. give I Have a Dream? YouTube. And some people posted, oh, you can't rely on YouTube. No, you can't rely on it for everything, but if you check it out ahead of time, if you take the whole 2 minutes ahead of class to go on and make sure that what you want is there, it's fantastic. It's a wonderful tool. Many, many good things on YouTube.
Great. So. And that's a wonderful way to get people engaged, get the students engaged, finding this stuff, finding the kind of, real-time source material that they're going to use if they go into the profession at all. And so thanks a lot for that. And really, thank you for pinch hitting. And again, you'll be speaking at 1:15 today, talking about Facebook. And that's
June 6, like they do on American Idol.
I put your Facebook profile up there. Yeah. And then your buds up there, your friends.
Who are they?
Okay. Let's go to another video and hope this works. This is something that was put together with at the Digital Commons studio yesterday. the day before.
Today, Wednesday.
Yes,
Wednesday.
it was hand delivered to my office at about 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon, which is great. And, this touches on several themes that we'll talk to Cathy about.
This faint and shaky hour, doesn't hurt me. You wanna feel how it feels. You wanna know that it doesn't hurt me. Before, did you ever stop this notice? This crying earth, this weeping shore.
What would you do if I sang out of tune? Would you stand up and walk out on me? Lend me your ears and I'll sing you a song. I will try not to sing out of key. Yeah.
Congressman Doyle, I think he's a very important part of coming to our campus because he's a superdelegate. He holds a vote at the convention. And more specifically of all, last year at a march in Washington, D.C., in front of 20,000 people, he got up and he basically dismissed George W. Bush's decision not to send troops into Darfur for the mass genocide that was going on. He argued that, well, we have troops in Iraq and Afghanistan, why can't we have troops in Darfur? So I'd really like to talk to him about that as well.
A book that I co-authored with a friend of mine from graduate school named Dana Oshowitz, who's currently at Southern Methodist University in Dallas. I just wanted to talk a little bit about why we wrote this book and why people might want to read it. One of the reasons was because we wanted to pay homage, which is the French pronunciation, right? Homage to French cinema after over 100 years of filmmaking.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Santora, and I go to Penn State Greater Allegheny, which is located in McKeesport, right outside Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm here today to start my iMovie, which is going to describe why I've decided to stay at Penn State Greater Allegheny and create my life here. We're walking on Penn State Greater Allegheny's campus right now. I'm actually headed to the computer lab to work on some things. So I'm going to give you a little tour of our campus. It's beautiful and it's quaint. It's not too big. One of the reasons why I decided to stay here was it was really close and there are a lot of things around here to do. The resources, I always have something to do here and always somewhere to go. Just driving down the street now to come to FedEx, I looked at 4 different places that I would honestly want to work at. I'm 10 minutes outside of the city and I'm there every week and in the Strip or down the south side. So it's a good opportunity, and I'm glad that I stayed at Penn State Greater Allegheny, because if I would have went up to main campus, I don't know if I could have persevered the way I did on such a small campus as I did with Penn State Greater Allegheny. But it's turned out good, and I'm really excited about graduating and moving on with life and going out there and telling everyone that I'm a Penn State alum.
Get all the credits. And so that was a compendium of the work by Dr. Kathleen Taylor Brown, and she is the assistant professor of communications at Penn State Greater Allegheny, and she certainly has been in the forefront of incorporating sort of rich media projects into students' learning. And so, Cathy, if you could, why don't you just break it down, and then we'll talk about a couple of things individually. But what did we see there?
Okay, hello everyone, and thank you for allowing me to speak today. This is a great honor. One of the first, I'm just sort of going to go through the snippets that you saw, the trailers. All of this video was put together by my students, and I came up here on Thursday to the Digital Commons up here, and is Trace Brown in the audience? Trace, stand up, there he is. How about Hannah Sloan? Hannah Sloan, there she is. Because without those folks, I would still be in the studio. Believe me, they really helped to condense like 4 hours of videos from my students down to 5 minutes. And I think I was given 3 minutes, and we gave up. We said it's 5 minutes. We can't do it any less time. But what you saw, we're engaged in my Communications 471, which is my Public Relations and Media Methods course. And we're working on a project. It's called the Follow Me Home Initiative. And what we're doing is we're lending 10 computers to 10 seniors, and we're following them home to see how they use them. And how we got started with this is what would be the catalyst to get, like, say, my mother to learn how to use the computer. The catalyst was learning how to write your life story. So what we did is I taught the students first how to write their life story, and now they're teaching the seniors how to write their life story, and then we will teach them how to use Word. Then hopefully we will teach them how to do a blog site and to bring it up on a blog, and so that they can share it with their families. We've been successful with 2 seniors. They have gone through and they've written 7 chapters. They've published their book, and then they've written a little note at Christmas time. One gentleman wrote a little note to his grandson and said, "Love, Papa." And so there is the reason why his family came over from Europe to America, and then going all the way up through his life, falling in love with his grandmother and the children and all those kinds of good things. So it's really a great catalyst to really start our Follow Me Home project. And from that, the dynamics for me as a tenure track faculty member is the great research that we're going to get out of all of that. So I am teaching it across my platform in my research methods course. Those students are involved, and they will be up here for the undergraduate research fair, which will be happening in 2 weeks, and they will be presenting the surveys and the data and the methods that they went through to, we had about 50 seniors, and we got it down to about 10 seniors, and why we picked those seniors for compatibility reasons and those kinds of things. So that was the first snippet. I'm going to be talking more about that. I'll plug it at 2:15 in room 205 about, if you're interested in learning how to write your life story, please come. The other is the next, I think I made a list here. The next snippet, we looked at, I'm trying to green all of my syllabi, and we looked at this past fall, we looked at Rachel Carson. Rachel Carson is a Pittsburgher. They had, Carnegie Mellon had a Rachel Carson Centennial Symposium on a Saturday. I tasked my students to go down to the symposium and walk around with iPods with microphones on it and talk to people. And so what they did is they produced audio and vodcast video podcast from that. It was just a great, wonderful experience. They got to talk to E.O. Wilson, who, for some of you who are environmentalists, he came and he spoke. He's from Harvard University. They got to talk to some of the folks that, and he had actually worked with Rachel Carson. So that was really cool. We have the Rachel Carson Bridge in Pittsburgh. So they were tasked to make a little iMovie. It was about, I want to say about 8 minutes long, and that was part of their project. And so how does all of this fit into public relations? Well, then they had to turn it all into a PSA, public service announcement. So it really was a great learning experience. We didn't lose any of the theory. We had the theory along with the technology. And for communication students today, not to have that opportunity, they're really behind the 8 ball. So it's, you know, as they go out, and Lindsay, who is right now is doing very, very well. She's working for a newspaper in Pittsburgh. When she interviewed, and she just went through everything that she's been doing, and it's just like some you know, what some of the other folks have said. Once they catch on to it, it's addictive. I was walking out one night, I teach a night class, and I was walking out and I looked up into to where the Digital Commons is, and the light is on. How many times do you have students doing those kinds of things? And the next day I asked them, how long were you guys there? They were there till 2 o'clock in the morning working on this stuff. I mean, I couldn't get them to write a paper that they would put that kind of, you know, that kind of time into. So that was a snippet. The other was we invited Congressman Mike Doyle, who, as you saw, is a super delegate from our region, to come onto our campus. And the day before he arrived, we did a walkthrough, an interview process with the editor and the assistant editor of our school newspaper. I'm the advisor, and what we did, so that's what you saw with Vince. And then the next day, we did a vodcast with the congressman. And it's about, I want to say 90 minutes long. So we're in the process of really trying to tweak that down and not lose the content, but tweak it down to where it's about 3 minutes. And that is a very, very hard process, believe me, because if you know politicians, they like to talk. So, so we're working on that right now, and then that will be up on our Digital Commons site. The other, just trying to think what was on there. The book signing with Dr. Mary Ellen Higgins. We have been, Dr. Margaret Signorella is a psychology professor, and with her students, she's tasked those folks to capture all of the book signings that we have on our campus, so that we have, if you will, artifacts of everything that is happening on our campus. So she's been doing that for extra credit, and it's worked out really well. This was just a little snippet of what the student actually did, but as you can imagine, that, you know, 2 hours later you have all this video. Now you have to really, you know, again, edit it down. So it takes some time, but it's great to see the collaboration across our campus, not just with IST or with integrative arts, but you're seeing it with communications now, you're seeing it with psychology. We're hoping for engineering, we're hoping for the business department, and those kinds of things. And then the last that you saw with Lindsay, which was phenomenal, I just love her. I had to do her lettering in pink, because she's just the greatest kid. I mean, young woman. She just took off with the Digital Commons when it came to our campus. And I have to plug our campus because we are the only campus in the West that has the Digital Commons. So everything else is out east, but we got it in the West. So it's been great for our campus. But our chancellor, Dr. Porter, has put together a $1,000 scholarship. Why do you love Penn State, Greater Allegheny? And so that's where this is from. And our students are tasked with 2 minutes video, and that we will, as a community, as a campus, vote on who has the best video, and that student will receive a $1,000 scholarship towards their education.
They're just really amazing. So everything from starting with your backpack journalism classes to the engagement with seniors. And talk about a little bit, it's in your bio, it says you're a lifelong Western Pennsylvanian. Can you talk about the importance of sort of storytelling to community?
Well, I think what's really, really important for the Mon Valley is, as our seniors are passing away, we don't have those stories. And I think that it's really important that we do capture them and that we make them available. We have what's called the McKeesport Heritage Center, and they've heard about our project, and they would like us to come in and they would like us to capture some of the history because as the new generation comes up, that's the way they want to learn. That's you know how they want to hear about history, and so we've put them off until the summer, I hope. And we're working with Blue Roof Technologies, which I'm going to talk a little bit about at my talk. But I just think that it's really important. There are very rich stories out there that that we're losing. There is a gentleman that is one of the last Holocaust survivors who lives in McKeesport, and to get that kind of information. And get it across to our students that, you know, I had one student, you know, that said, you know, what happens when Sam passes away? You know, what are we going to do about his story? And we can't forget that story. We can't forget those atrocities. So I think that it's really important that we do that. And then to have a 21-year-old engaged with, you know, a 70-year-old senior who maybe was, you know, a secretary in one of the mills that is closed down, that her husband passed away, and she raised her children as a result of. To listen to those kinds of stories is phenomenal. My students love it. They cannot wait to get together with their senior because they have this connection, they have this bond that they wouldn't naturally have. And then from there, I think the really exciting thing to me is that I have my students speaking with their mother, speaking with their grandmother, talking about you know, what's our story? Why don't you put our story together? And so now, so people are, you know, through that catalyst, then we get people engaged in technology. And I'm going to show the website at my talk, another plug, for all of this, but in room 205 at 2:15. It's you know, I was talking to my mom about it, and she started to write her life story, but, you know, she started out, she was in kindergarten one day, and then the next day she was over here on a date with my dad. So I said, you know, you sort of really have to put it in chapters so that it all comes together. And the one thing that if I can leave you with the fact of writing your story is there's just one thing that I know. My sister Charlotte and I, we had the same parents, Joe and Rusty, and that's all we have in common. So your story is your story, and you don't let anybody else tell you any different. And it means a lot to their families. I had one lady after one of our sessions, I was telling somebody, she came up to me and she just hugged me. She was just so thrilled that her husband had just died 6 months ago. She was just sort of lost out there. She heard about this project. She got involved in it. And now she has a purpose. And her kids are really excited about it because now they're going to have the history of their family. And we have a site that you can go after you've written all your chapters, that you can publish it, and you have a copy of your life story, both, you know, orally, and then also you have a book, an artifact to be able to do it. So it's really been a very, very cool experience from, you know, instructing the students and seeing the reaction from the students and from the seniors. And the last plug I will give is that I am, as Laura is, we are engaged in the Civic and Community Engagement minor. We're the folks you go to on the campus. So all of my courses, by grading them and by doing outreach to the community, my students will receive their degree in corporate communications with a minor in civic and community engagement. And believe me when I tell you that all of this all started, the ability to do all of this was through the Digital Commons, because it really engaged the students. And so that's really been the whole, you know, I can go on and talk forever, so I mean, because I'm just like, you know.
You could, however, you don't want to be late for your talk at 2:15 in room 205. Did we mention it? Thanks a lot, Cathy.
Thank you.
And Laura and Nikki, I really appreciate it. It was a wonderful panel. And in closing, I just want to mention that you know, as long as we're doing plugs, all of this would not be possible without the hard work of people like Chris Millay, Hannah Sloan, Matt Frank, Matt Bodak, Trace Brown, and Justin Miller, because they just, I mean, they have been so energetic in getting faculty engaged in this, and I really appreciate that.